Ready.
Unicapital Securities Incorporated is a leading brokerage house in the country dedicated to bringing you the best trading experience possible. USI is part of the Unicapital group of companies that provides its clients with an innovative, integrated range of products and services through the three companies that comprise the group. Our clients can invest in multiple assets through our UTrade platform. Invest on the go with the UTrade mobile app. Get exclusive access to special webinars and more by opening an account today. Unicapital Securities Incorporated is a leading brokerage house in the country dedicated to bringing you the best trading experience possible. USI is part of the Unicapital group of companies that provides its clients with an innovative, integrated range of products and services through the three companies that comprise the group. Our clients can invest in multiple assets through our UTrade platform. Invest on the go with the UTrade mobile app. Get exclusive access to special webinars and more by opening an account today.
Good day.
Unicapital Securities Incorporated is a leading brokerage house in the country dedicated to bringing you the best trading experience possible. USI is part of the Unicapital group of companies that provides its clients with an innovative, integrated range of products and services through the three companies that comprise the group. Our clients can invest in multiple assets through our UTrade platform. Invest on the go with the UTrade mobile app. Get exclusive access to special webinars and more by opening an account today.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We have with us today a renewable energy company looking to contribute supply to the Philippines' rising energy demand. They are pioneers, as sure as I will see later in their presentation, having been at work in the early days of commercially viable renewable energy developments in the country, with key members of its management team having been instrumental in the formulation of the RE Act of 2008. Today, we are happy to be joined by and present to you Alternergy Holdings Corporation Alter with its co-founders and chairman Vince Pèrez and president and CEO Gerry Magbanua. Hi Vince, hi Gerry. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, I think you guys are still on mute.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Good
Hi.
afternoon, Gab. Thank
Good
you.
afternoon. Thank you. I'm sure it's quite a busy time for you right now. It's been 2 days since the start of your offer. How's it been going so far for you guys in the past 48 hours?
Gab, we've been really tied up, but it's exciting. We're getting really good positive feedback here. Really good. The energy is positive. We're glad to be doing this. We're excited.
All right, thank you. Glad to know that the feedback is positive so far. Now, before we pass the floor on to you to present your company, we do want to show some quick slides on the details of the offer. For this IPO, Alternergy will be offering 150 million primary common shares with an over allotment option of 115 million primary common shares at 1.28 pesos per share to be listed on the main board of the Philippine Stock Exchange. Total gross proceeds will be up to 1.6 billion Philippine pesos, assuming over allotment option is fully exercised, and 1.4 billion without the over allotment. The offer will be equivalent to market capitalization of 5 billion. And upon completion of the offer, a total of 3.9 billion common shares will be issued and outstanding, with the offer shares representing 32.16% of the total shares issued and outstanding common shares of the company, and 29.39% of the issued and outstanding capital stock of the company. All the shares are subject to a lockup period of at least 365 days after a listing date. Further, the company intends to use the next proceeds for the development and construction of projects under development, namely the Solana Solar and Lamut Hydro, payment of some accrued liabilities on the Kirahon Solar Energy Corp, pre-development expenses of the pipeline projects in the pipeline, namely Ibulao Hydro, Tanay Wind, Alabat Wind, and offshore wind projects, and other general corporate requirements and working capital to operationalize retail electricity supply. And for the timetable, offer period commenced yesterday, March 13 until Friday, March 17. Alternergy's listing date will be on March 24, 2023. On how to subscribe to the IPO, we'll have more details for you later on. And again, we are pleased to present to you Alternergy's management, Vince Pèrez, and CEO Gerry Magbanua, to tell us about their company and their plans.
Thank you. Our pleasure, Gab. Our pleasure to be here. I'm Vince Pèrez, co-founder and chairman of Alternergy. Together with me is Gerry Magbanua, president. So let's start with our slide presentation. You can just bear with me. Just checking if you're seeing the full slide. Yes?
Yes, it looks okay.
So Alternergy is one of the pioneers in renewable energy since 2008, although really we began previously in 2005, which we'll share with you later. We are definitely one of the leading RE firms in the country, and what we have is a diversified triple play portfolio of wind, solar, hydro, battery storage, and in the coming years, the next frontier, offshore wind. We have about 10 operating plants at the moment, 5 projects under construction and 7 under pre-development that will lead up to 1.3 thousand megawatts over the next 5 years. What is important to know is we have a very deep bench for our management team. The first 3 on the left that you see, myself, Gerry Magbanua, and Knut Hedegaard, were the co-founders of Alternergy, but we began our life in renewable with Northwind, the first wind farm in all of Southeast Asia. Here you have 3 bankers among the top management team, 2 engineers, 1 lawyer, 1 CPA, 2 with government experience, and all of them have either previously build their own wind project, their own solar farm project, or their own run-of-river project, or even their first floating solar. So together, you could see we complement each other, and we've been working together for the last 15 years. What we are, we're not a REIT, we're not a passive company, we are a developer. We love to get a project from scratch because we feel that's the best way to create value for our shareholders. And even after we put a project into operation, we like to remain as shareholders so we could operate and maintain them. Second, because most of our projects are financed by project loans, we consider our lenders as our long-term partners. And to date, we've been able to raise more than 13 billion pesos in project financing in the last 15 years. Now, the third aspect is something very unique to Alternergy. Given our government background, given our past experience, we proactively engage with the policymakers on renewable policy discussions. We work closely with the ERC, the Department of Energy, with the Transco, and other energy-related agencies, and we get involved in the forefront of making sure that any incoming policy directions would be beneficial to renewable energy. We subscribe to a quadruple bottom line of profitability, carbon reduction, community benefits, and employee fulfillment. But of course, foremost of that is we have to make money. And we measure our profitability through annual cash flow, or EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Everyone here in the company is driven by what EBITDA a project can bring, when will it come on stream, and no matter what the market valuation will be, no matter what the markets will be in the stock market, we will deliver the cash flow that will be the underpinning valuation for the company. As mentioned, as a pioneer, we were part of the first wind farm in all of Southeast Asia. Together with then Governor Bongbong Marcos in Ilocos Norte, we built this pioneering project even before the RE law was promulgated. With this track record, the Department of Energy in 2008 gave us about half a dozen wind service contracts to explore multiple sites all over Luzon and Mindoro. And that led to the discovery of a promising wind resource in Pililla, Rizal, 40 kilometers away from Metro Manila. And we were able to finance this with an all-Filipino banking syndicate of BDO, China Bank, and RCBC, which was innovatively designed by Gerry here, and even got an award from IFC. Now, in 2015, we worked hand in hand with the Energy Regulatory Commission, or ERC, to try to understand how they should evaluate a solar project between alternating current and direct current. By working with them, they approved the very first bilateral solar contract in the country for our Quirojon Solar Farm in northern Mindanao. And rather another innovative facility, this time with RCBC, was to have a single portfolio company finance to build mega-sized solar rooftops over malls in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And finally, as we speak, we are building the first and largest solar battery system in the Western Pacific for the Republic of Palau. Just walking you the memory lane quickly, here's the picture of the Bangi Bay, which three of us helped build in 2005. That was even before the signing of the RE law, where we were resource persons in the Senate deliberations. Here I am, as you can see, looking at the boiler band on my wrist at the signing in Malacanang in December 2008. After which, then Secretary Angelo Reyes gave the team multiple service contracts in wind to develop the prospective sites. And we did that thanks to a grant from the Asian Development Bank and the government of Japan to finance the feasibility study of three prospective wind sites, one of which was the Pililla Rizal Wind Farm, thanks to measuring towers, about a dozen that we set up all over the country. And here is the Pililla Rizal Wind Farm that is under construction overlooking Laguna Lake, which received an award from the IFC. As part of our second triple play portfolio, one of our partners, Knut Hediger and Julius Stern, completed a small run-of-river hydro project in Nueva Vizcaya. Taking from the lessons learned from that project, we decided to roll out a portfolio of run-of-river projects in northern Luzon, thanks to a soft loan from Infraco Asia, a development institution based in Singapore, funded by 3 countries of the UK, Australia, and Switzerland. And here in the lower left, you could see us celebrating a memorandum of agreement with the Dumagat indigenous people of the Sierra Madre and Nueva Ecija. And here, we're welcomed by the municipality of Tiangan in Ifugao as we set up our second run-of-river projects. All of these projects are financed by the Development Bank of the Philippines. As part of our third triple play portfolio, Mark Lichtenfeld moved to the Philippines in 2013 after setting up large solar farms in California, Nevada, Arizona, as part of Sun Edison. And together, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the CEPALCO, a private distribution utility in Cagayan de Oro, which led to the first Piron solar farm approved by the ERC. And at that time, it was the largest in the country. Subsequently, we rolled out multiple large solar rooftops on malls all over Luzon besides Mindanao. And we're, as we speak, near completed a solar battery system in the Republic of Palau. Let us just walk you through our unique triple play portfolio that distinguishes us from other renewable energy companies that's currently in the market. First, we're very focused on the Philippines. We try not to aspire to do projects in other countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, or India, although we must admit in 2008 we thought we would do it, but we realized that we know the Philippines like the back of our hand, the palm of our hand. It's like our backyard. We understand the regulatory framework, and therefore, for the last 15 years, most of our efforts have been in building wind, solar, and run-of-river hydro throughout the country. The only exception, of course, was this invitation from ADB to get involved with the Republic of Palau. But why triple play? What is the significance of having 3 different resources? And I'd like to slowly walk you through this very important slide. These are the 3 charts of the monthly production of hydro, run-of-river hydro, the green line. The blue line is the monthly production of a wind farm, and the orange line is the monthly production of a solar farm. As you can see with the green line, monthly production peaks during the rainy months of July to November until it tapers off in the dry months. The blue line starts picking up when the amihan comes in October, all the way to the bare months, the early months of January and February, until it becomes windless in the dry months of April and May. A solar farm on the orange line tends to be steady all year long, except during the peak hot summer months of March and April. But why are we showing these 3 graphs? By combining these 3 seasonalities, the 3 different resources of wind, solar, and hydro, we could produce a steady cash flow to pay dividends to our shareholders like yourselves, or debt service to our lenders. Now, let's look at it from a daily profile of production. The orange parabola is a classic production of a solar farm during the day, where it starts producing between 5 and 6 in the morning, peaking at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. until it slowly subsides by dusk. Meanwhile, a wind farm tends to start producing as the sun rises, as you could see, and it continues to produce more even though the sun has set, but the wind is still producing in what we call the second peak of electricity demand in the day, the evening hours, when households are home, they're cooking, students are studying, everyone watching TV or electric fan is on, and aircon. And this is critical because it meets the second daily peak of electricity after the midday peak. The run-of-river hydro pretty much is steady all day long, but by combining again these 3 daily profiles of wind, solar, hydro, we can aspire to provide 24-hour clean energy supply to what we call the contestable customer, the malls, the hotels, the BPO buildings, the steel mills and cement plants that are all now seeking green energy, not only because for sustainability reasons, but because now it's much cheaper and predictable than fossil fuel electricity. Another reason we pursue triple play is because land availability in our country is becoming an increasing challenge for infrastructure projects, whether an airport, a toll road, or in this case, a power plant. And here we illustrate to you a typical solar farm that produces 150 gigawatt hours of electricity a year will require 100 hectares of otherwise productive agricultural land. But for the same output of 150 gigawatt, a wind farm will only require about 15 hectares of land. And therefore, by combining not just solar, but also wind and hydro, we can mitigate land availability, which is becoming an increasing challenge to any production product pipeline rollout. Another triple play, though, is the fact that wind, solar, and hydro have different capacity factors. Solar, of course, only produces during the day. Wind in the country, in this particular part of the world, Philippines, only produce about 30% of its capacity factor, while our run-of-river hydro are sized to produce between 50 to 60% capacity factor. So it's very hard to compare megawatts with one company versus another because the capacity factor of each one is different. So we tend to focus more on kilowatt hour produced or gigawatt hour. That is how we measure our production, not in terms of megawatts. Now, showing you the pipeline that you will be coming into as part of our portfolio, we have the operating Quirojon Solar Farm in northern Mindanao, the Pililla Rizal, very profitable wind farm in Rizal. These are 4 out of the 8 mega-sized solar rooftops all over Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And despite that, we have 2 projects currently under construction. The Palau Solar Battery Project, which will come on stream by May 18 of this year, and the Solana Bataan Hermosa in Bataan, which will be part of the use of proceeds of this IPO, will be finished in 9 months. And it's only about 300 meters behind the NGCP substation, critical advantage of this site. Beyond the solar projects, we have 2 out of 3 run-of-river projects under construction. The Dupinga mini hydro in Nueva Ecija has been in construction since 2021. We hope to bring it on stream by 2024. Kianga, a 3-river complex in Ifugao, been in construction in 21, and we hope to bring it sometime between 24 and 25. And soon, part of our use of proceeds is to jumpstart our 3rd run-of-river hydro, also in Ifugao, and all 3 of which will be financed by DBP, and these first 2 are fully financed. There will not require any additional funding from the IPO proceeds. So we have projects in solar under construction, hydro under construction, and now our biggest portfolio, the wind. Sembrano is also in Pililla Rizal. It's really phase 2 of our original Pililla Rizal wind farm. 84 megawatts, fully licensed, ready to shovel, ready. And we already have signed a long-term offtake agreement with a renewable electricity supply company. Moving on from Pililla is Tanay. Why Tanay? It's the adjacent municipality of the proven wind resource of Pililla. This close to 100 megawatts is a lot easier than Sembrano or Pililla because we're only dealing with one landowner, the provincial government itself, which we already negotiated with them. And more importantly, we've recently obtained height clearance from the Civil Aviation Authority to install 16 very large 6.5 megawatt turbines on this site. Lastly, we're moving away from the province of Rizal into an island called Alabat in Quezon Province. Why there? Well, it is facing the Pacific Ocean, the prevailing northeast monsoon wind, which we call Amihan. We're very bullish on the wind resource here, and this is something that we will start developing in 2025 to complete by 2026. Despite all these operating assets, projects under construction in hydro, solar, and in wind, to top it off, our project pipeline are 2 mega large size offshore wind, the next frontier, a project that we have tied up with Shell, one in the windswept passage between Mindoro and Batangas, and another one between Mindoro and Panay. And this is part of a joint venture that Shell Overseas Investments of the UK have approached us 18 months ago, that they've identified us as a local partner who could work with them in taking these two frontier offshore wind projects, priorities of the current BBM administration, to fruition over the next 5 years. Let me now pass you on. Oh, excuse me. Before we pass you on to Gerry, this slide is a very important slide because as an investor in Alter, you will own a piece of this proven project portfolio. All are permitted. There are 29 service contracts plus the one in Palau. The blue boxes represent the wind projects. The green boxes represent the hydro projects. The orange represent the solar projects. And this dark red is a licensed retail electricity supply company that will aggregate any of these resources, whether wind, solar, or hydro, that will sell to the contestable customers that we mentioned. The listed vehicle is this blue company called Alternergy Holdings Corporation, of which you will be part of. You will be part of this portfolio. All of these are solid projects. None are letter of intent or prospective projects pie in the sky. It's all been vetted by 3 law firms, the SEC and the PSC. Let me now turn you on to Gerry to talk about the key investment highlights for Alternergy. Gerry?
Thank you, Vince. So why invest with Alternergy? So as Vince alluded to earlier, Alternergy has a robust pipeline of diverse renewable energy projects. For some of them, we have secured long-term agreements with reputable off-takers. For the others, we expect to pursue bilateral contracts with other DUs and electric co-ops. We have been able to establish operational track record since 2015, and to overcome the difficulties in project development, we've worked with different partners over the years, and we have been able to raise capital up to 13.2 billion. That proves that we have access to debt capital, and as pioneers, Alternergy is well positioned to leverage on the renewable energy growth, which is supported by a very favorable regulatory environment. Alternergy has a management team with industry-leading experience, be it in government policy, business management, engineering, finance, project management. Last but not least, Alternergy is committed to a sustainable future for the next generation. Allow me to walk you through specific details of our portfolio. As Vince mentioned earlier, we have projects that we are lining up all the way to 2026. So you can see here from 2015 to 2019, these are the projects that we have already brought into commercial operations. And between 2023 to 2026, these are the 9 projects that Vince mentioned earlier that we expect to bring into commercial operations, such that by the end of 2026, we will have an annual generation equivalent to 1.1 billion kilowatt hours. So 1.1 billion kilowatt hours, that is enough or sufficient renewable energy supply that will power up 500,000 households. That is the number of households in the city of Manila. Based on our current portfolio, most of that will come from wind. Allow me to walk you through some of the use of proceeds for this IPO. So we expect to raise a total of 1.4 billion. 564 million of that will be used to fund 2 projects that are shovel ready. We mentioned Solana Solar Project in Bataan, Lamut Project in Ifugao. So these equity stakes will allow us to gain control over these projects. We also are allocating 522 million for the payment of acquisition of the Kirahon Solar Project, which also allowed us to gain control of this project and will also allow us to have access to very rich dividends that this project has been paying over the years. We're also allocating 155 million to continue our development expenses or activities on these projects: the Gabryle project, the Tanay project, the Alabat wind project, and the offshore wind projects. To round this up, we're also allocating 30 million for our working capital to operationalize our retail electricity supply business following the IPO. So that rounds up 1.4 billion in terms of use of proceeds. Let me pass you on back to Vince for the final summary.
Thank you, Gerry. So let's just summarize what is the unique investment opportunity into Alter. A stock market guru explained to me that there's several P's that one should consider in buying a equity stock. One, who are the people behind that company? In our case, we are a group of complementary experienced management team. We're not a one entrepreneur. We have been together for 15 years working together. Several of us have built their own wind or their own solar or own run-of-river hydro experience before joining Alternergy. It's a proven team with complementary experience in banking, legal, accounting, finance, engineering, and government service. One of the intangible assets of this company, we believe, is the unsurpassed senior level relationships with the energy sector, because power is a highly regulated industry, and anyone who's had experience in that will have a very additional advantage in getting permits to build the projects. The second P is the product. What product are you investing in? Well, this is not a business plan. It's a unique, high-quality portfolio of wind, solar, hydro, and battery storage, and soon offshore wind. A triple play, a robust portfolio that you are buying into. You're having a piece of probably one of the last remaining portfolios that will come to market. And what's the potential of this portfolio? These are high quality, a clearly defined project pipeline, and it is the growth, the rollout. The projects that are already existing will provide dividends. The projects under construction are already fully funded and will bring in a growth in terms of cash flow and net income. And the projects under development will soon, in the next 3 to 4 years, come to commercial operation that will boost the trajectory of net income and EBITDA of this company. That is the potential. Fourth, is the quality of the earnings predictable? Well, we hope we could prove to you that our projects are quality projects. All of them are fully contracted with creditworthy off-takers that is using top-tier equipment, whether solar panels or wind turbines or hydro turbines, that have been vetted, reviewed by third-party technical partners that have given confidence to lenders to finance these projects on a non-recourse basis. We have proven to you too that we've been able to raise competitive financing to finance these projects, and on certain occasions been able to tap soft loans or grants because of our pure play renewable story. With all of these attributes, you could ask the fact that we're pioneers, another P, because by being a pioneer, we really understand the complex process of getting a project up and running. And as we're excited about battery storage and offshore wind as the next pioneer frontiers of renewable power in the country, we believe that given the current high oil and coal prices with very high inflation, the fact that renewable power can offer competitive rates, fixed rates for the 5, 10, 15 years, we will actually help reduce power inflation. So with that, we believe now more than ever, investing in renewable power, investing in Alternergy is a compelling imperative. Thank you and good day. Over to you, Gab.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Vince and Gerry. It's quite illuminating how growth prospects have turned for you from the start, and as being pioneers when not a lot of people understood a clear path towards creating new renewable energy in the Philippines, you were already able to produce a commercially viable plant. So for our next portion, we'll go into our Q&A. We have some questions for the company. But before we go into some of our questions, we actually have a question from one of the one of our clients, people on the show. And the question reads, I noticed that there are some forest lands that are cleared up to set up the plants. Is there a way to place the plant in an urban setting so forest lands are not displaced?
Good question. And as a conservationist, as a chairman of WWF, we really would like to avoid as much as possible cutting trees. And so we plot through LiDAR and on-site how we build a wind farm or hydro. Excuse me. And for every tree that we cut, we get permission first from the DNR. We don't just cut without permission. And for every tree that we cut, we actually replant a multiple of the trees we've cut. And one of our quadruple bottom line is to measure the number of trees that we have planted. I believe we have planted 55,000 trees to date as a compensation for the trees that we have cut as part of our project. Now, after they've been cut, like we had to do with Pinilla Rizal Wind Farm, if you visit that place now, it's back to being green. It's a lush area. So the initial scarring is only temporary, and soon the landscape gets recovered, and you could see how beautiful it is in terms of landscape. Got.
All right, thank you for that. I understand, I think it was shown in one of the slides earlier, is that wind energy, which you're primarily focused on, actually needs less land compared to solar development. So in effect, apart from those who are heavily pursuing solar projects, this has a less environmental impact with regards to cutting trees in certain areas. Okay. Thank you for that. And for our first question of what we have, our first question is, how many megawatts do you plan to add in 2023 and in 2024? From the slides earlier, we saw projects in the pipeline. Over the next 2 years, where would you see expansion to be in? And would it be in mostly on hydro or mostly in solar or wind? How will that look like in the next 2 years?
Gerry?
Thanks, Gab. So for 2023, we expect to bring into commercial operations a total of 33 megawatts. Those are all solar projects coming from the Palau project and hopefully the Solana project before the end of the year. Now in 2024, we expect to have a mix of projects. So this is a combination. We expect a total of 113 megawatts, I should say, of capacity that will be brought into commercial operation. So that's consisting of a wind project out of Zambrano. There's a couple of run-of-river hydro projects from the Ifugao project and the Pina Hydro project. So overall, that's a total of over the next 2 years, there's a total of 145 megawatts that we expect to bring into commercial operations.
All right, thank you for that. So it looks like in the next 2 years, there's going to be quite an exponential growth on that, on the growth of the capacity. One moment. And in relation to that, one of the next questions that we do have is in terms of gigawatt hours, how many % will these plants add to your production in the next 2 years, in 2023 and 2024, coming from where we are right now with around 72 megawatts of installed capacity?
Yep. Again, that's a good clarifying question because as Vince alluded to earlier, we're really tracking gigawatt hours rather than megawatts. So for 2023, we expect a 42% growth in terms of gigawatt hours coming from a base of in 2022. And then for 2024, it would have a hefty increase of 190% over 2023 estimated production. So that's a big number jump from 2023 to 2024. Yeah.
Quite sizable, and I think we could relate this back to how it was earlier mentioned that because we're looking at megawatts expansion relative to gigawatt hour growth or energy production, and we're seeing quite a bit of difference to what we normally see. And I think the difference from there is highlighted on the slide that you mentioned earlier, where you actually get more production coming from wind farms as compared to those that are solely engaged in solar or solely engaged in hydro.
Right.
All right. So there's the plants and there's the production. Next question that we do have is, to whom do you expect to sell this power generated to? Will it be local distribution utilities or corporates with power requirements in the area, or the wholesale electricity spot markets?
Yeah, the strategy of the group is really to sell power via a bilateral agreement. So, for instance, all the projects that we have to date that are operating are all covered by bilateral contract agreements. So, for the Palau project that's coming up this year, it's covered by a contract with Palau Public Utilities Corporation on a 20-year PSA. The Solana project has already, we signed up a contract for that with the local DU. The Binga project has a contract with the local DU. The Tanay project, though, and the we expect that to be lined up for the green energy auction program that the government is embarking on this year. They started it last year, and they expect to continue doing that this year. So we're hopeful that we will competitively participate in that program. On the Kiangan project, we also expect to avail of the feed-in tariff program that is still ongoing. There's still some capacities available. And as a backup to that, there's still future green energy auction program that we could participate in. The Alabat wind project, we're going to line it up for green energy auction program. So what we're saying is that before we pour in the first dollar or peso on the project, we would be having contracts already on these projects as our key strategy.
All right, thank you. It's good to know that the main intention here is to secure service contracts or power supply contracts for these plants. Of course, there is that risk to be selling on the West M, and will provide some volatility to earnings, especially if the demand is quite low for the specific period. But otherwise, understanding that there were PSAs that back up the plants, and even including those plants that are still under development, it's good to know that there will be off-takers once they're put up. For the next question, in relation to selling power, and I'm sure you may be noticing this within the renewable energy sector, how has the challenge of connecting to the grid factored in so far with your existing developments and projects in the pipeline?
Yeah, it's a good question, Gab. And this is not only unique to Alternergy, but it is a common issue affecting the entire industry, not only renewables, but also the other conventional, be it coal or natural gas. We're all faced by this problem, and that's the grid interconnection. Being an archipelagic country, we don't have much transmission line traversing all throughout, connecting all the islands in the country. So that is indeed a challenge. So for Alternergy, what we've done is we've strategically located our projects to nearby connection points or substations or tapping points, either with NGCP directly or through what we call the host distribution utility, where we are going to be embedded. So the Solana project, as I mentioned earlier, is only 300 meters away from an NGCP substation. Our Tanay project is literally underneath a high voltage line of NGCP. So we are, and the other thing that we're doing is that we're not on the sizing of our projects. We don't size our projects in such a way that the grid will have difficulty absorbing. Rather, it's quite easy because we're looking at sizes that less than 100 megawatt, which is really a bite size that can be easily absorbed by the grid. So that's what we're doing to address that issue.
Okay, thanks. Actually, I want to ask for a little bit more insight into how the smaller projects are more easily absorbed by the grid. Is it driven by demand within the area, or is it driven by the specifications of the transmission lines within the area?
Yeah. The grid networks of NGCP or the DUs require that a certain percentage of intermittent resource can be absorbed. There's a limit. Remember, a solar project, when there's a cloud cover, it the generation drops significantly, and that affects the grid, the stability of the grid. So the system operator or NGTP does not allow intermittent resources to be connected to a grid that will have an impact on the grid when that resource goes away just because of a cloud cover. So we're doing that by sizing it in a way that will not have a dramatic impact on the stability of the grid. That's what we think is a sweet spot where projects can be accommodated or absorbed easily by the grid.
Okay. So essentially, if I were to try to frame this correctly, the grid has a specific percentage it will allow to draw resources from renewable energy plants, and that percentage is because there might be other plants that may have to depend on baseload plants and coal power plants to maintain transmission of electricity to the grid, and in identifying smaller chunks instead of building mega projects with large megawatts capacities, that helps you avoid the risk, so to speak, of not being able to sell out your power to the grid because of those limitations.
Correct. So we're basically just delivering just within that factor of a threshold that the grid can allow. Beyond that, you will require so many reserve requirements just to support that one particular plant in case that goes away in an instant.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question. Now we've established a project pipeline, key generation target figures, potential customers, and transmission to the grid. In pursuing the pipeline, we have a two-part question. First is, how do you plan to mitigate execution risks to completing the pipeline? And two, what core strengths does Alter have that will turn this probability to a sound and achievable possibility?
Thank you, Gab. Let me try to answer that. This is Vince. Well, one, given we've got a track record already of completing projects and raising funds, we have a very defined project development pipeline. We meet every week. We review every project, what permits are still pending, what long lead item that we need to obtain in terms of getting permits or consents from regulators. So we've done it before. We know what it takes. And as we do more projects, we learn from those experiences and replicate them. One example, the very first wind farm, we had to talk to 3 mobile companies to make sure that we were not blocking their cellular tower line of sight. So we had talked to Smart, Globe, Digital at that time, and they've never heard of what we were trying to talk about, a line of sight clearance agreement. We made up that name. But having done that, it became easier for them and for us to go back to them and get those so-called line of sight for our subsequent wind projects. Now, when we embark on this pipeline, Gerry and the team put together a capital funding program. To roll out these projects, we believe it's going to require something like 20 billion pesos. 20 billion pesos of projects, but we could borrow 70% of that, which is non-recourse, not on the balance sheet of the holding company, the company that you're investing in. It's on the balance sheet of the project companies. And therefore, with the 70-30 debt equity ratio, we only need to put 6 billion pesos as equity. But our game plan, which we learned from the oil and gas industry, is as we develop these projects, we own them, but we slowly sell down up to 49%. That's the pivot of this IPO, that we will now control at least 50, 51% of these projects. And when a newcomer comes in the oil and gas industry, what they do is they pay us a premium. They pay us a fee. They reimburse us for project costs that we've incurred in the past. It's like and plus they even give us free shares. Those are type of the premiums that we can extract for inviting someone to come in for a highly defined project. So all we need to do is raise 3 billion And currently we're raising 1.5, 1.6 from this IPO. So all we need to do is borrow 1.5 more, and that will be something we will be issuing in the form of green bonds or maybe redeemable preferred shares. That is something already we're talking prospectively post-IPO with several banks who've approached us. And lastly, the third item of our mitigation of execution risk is we carefully select top-tier contractors that we have worked with in the past, working with world-renowned technical experts to make sure our projects are well-designed, and proactive monitoring of the development, construction, and making sure we set aside contingency allowance for cost overrun or delays. So that's how we mitigate execution risk, Gab.
Okay, thank you. You know what? I do want to highlight one of the things you mentioned, and it's regarding how in the past, in the company's history, you've sold out some equity stakes to help fund these projects and at a premium. In a way, you've been tapping equity investors in the company already, directly into the power plants, of which they have staked on your capacity to deliver these power plants. And I guess where we are from now and going into this IPO, we're seeing their investments having fruition through that expansion. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. You've talked about debt funding. Given the size of the projects relative to the company's balance sheet, how does the funding path look like? Will it be through debts, issuing bonds? Do you expect to still sell equity stakes in projects similar to how you've done? How will it look like?
Okay, so with the IPO, we're going to raise 1.5, 1.6 billion. We want to be conservative. We want to do a debt equity ratio of 1-to-1. So right after this, we'll probably ask to raise about 1.5 billion in debt. We manage our interest rate risks. Currently, interest rates are very high in the locally with the central bank trying to suck out inflation. We're probably only going to borrow 3-year money, 5-year money at most, or 6-year money with an interest reset in the 3rd year. These are just financial engineering that we would do. We might then tap the green bond market. Given we're a pure play renewable, we got no single megawatt of oil, gas, diesel, and coal. ESG market, the environment, social governance market for funding might give us a little savings. Mind you, we've been able to get grant money, meaning free money, for some of our projects because we're cutting edge, like in the Palau solar project. So we have a very clear plan, and right after the IPO, believe it or not, we'll be sending out term sheets to local banks to offer us competitive debt. We really want to keep the equity stake where it is, so it doesn't get diluted. So as much as possible, we'll do non-dilutive funding to ensure that all of us here, the new investors included, the new shareholders, will have an upside in our equity returns in terms of market price appreciation.
Okay, so it does look like that moving forward, selling equity stakes have been a growth-oriented strategy for you in the past. But now if we move on to the public markets with an IPO, the company intends to retain equity stakes for these projects and move towards debt funding. I guess some quick calculations on what you've mentioned, drawing down 1.5 debt against 1.5 billion worth of equity is a 50-50 ratio of debt to equity ratio. And that's quite a good ratio to have, considering that power companies usually go for 70-30 debt to equity ratios. Okay, moving forward, in relation to this, you've been talking to banks. Have you seen any risks to the company that might be challenged in securing this funding?
Yeah, allow me to respond to that, Gab. The answer is straight no. Local banks have so much liquidity and they have so much desire to lend to good quality projects like what we've done in the past. So, and today with a very favorable regulatory environment, we see that even international institutions are willing to support good quality RE projects. So yes, the answer is no. We don't expect that to be a challenge.
Gab, I also should disclose I'm independent director of BDO Unibank, the largest bank in the country. So I sit as an independent director. I see all the deal flow of what is being financed. And as an independent director, I cannot afford to be in a company like Alternergy that will default, because that will disqualify me as an independent director. And I'll be in the bad eyes of the DSP. So definitely we value our banking relationships because of that.
Yeah, I might also want to add, Gab, that we're very proactive in this space. No, on our existing projects, even we look at that proactively, working with the lenders. When we realized that last year there's going to be an increase in interest rates, we worked with them proactively by lowering or shortening the repricing dates of our facilities. Instead of the 5-year normal rates repricing times that we had in the past, we've shortened it with 2 or 3 years, because we're taking advantage of the lower yield curves for those short duration periods. So we expect interest rates as a cycle. We expect them the next 2 to 3 years it would come down. So that's the time that we will be repricing our existing project.
Gab, one of the things that we get a little bit of pleasure is that to convince a bank that has never lent to a renewable project before, and we sit down with them, we educate them, we even present to the board of the bank, on the risks and returns of lending to a renewable project. And once they get comfortable with us, like they did with Pililla, RCBC was a lender there, and now they finance most of our solar projects. China Bank was a lender in that Pililla, and China Bank has lent to Alternergy, and of course BDO is obviously the fact that is one of the underwriters of this deal.
All right, it's good to know that the funding side is there. Actually, that brings me to my next question, and it's related to what I've already mentioned. And maybe for further clarity, we'll ask it anyway. So how have you seen these banks favor renewable energy in the power sector? Where does this translate for Alter? And I think a question there has been answered. It has been in the form of lower interest rates or longer payment terms, given that we're in a rising interest rate environment. But given that, where would you, I guess, try to understand why the banks are quite in favor of renewable energy and funding renewable energy, given the current climate right now?
So good point, Gab. So as you mentioned, over the last 12 years, we have indeed raised a total of 13.2 billion worth of debt financing from local banks. So as Vince mentioned, we've started educating them or helping them understand the risks and rewards of lending to renewable energy projects. So they've become comfortable with us. And the fact that they agreed with our proposal last year to change our pricing mechanism from 5 years to 3 years or 2 years. So they've grown accustomed to the quality of projects that we bring, and that these lenders are willing to support us in every way they can, just to make our projects more attractive, and that we could implement these projects quite successfully. So yes, lower interest rate is definitely one of the factors that we're enjoying, from as high as 300 basis points. Now we're talking of 100, even lower than 100 basis points, 75 basis points for the next repricing we're doing now. Again, tenor, originally we're doing 12.5 years. Now we're talking about 15, 17 years of tenor. So yes, we are reaping the benefits of being a pioneer in this space, and having worked with the lenders, and working with them over the last 15 years has been a great partnership, collaboration with the lenders. Why do they still like renewable? Obviously, there's a global mandate, a global movement where companies are going towards funding renewables, and less funding for, or maybe no funding for, traditional source of power like coal. So we need power. Our country needs supply, and the lenders are willing to supply good renewable energy, support good renewable energy projects.
Thank you. And I think this is where a proven track record is quite important. Credit rating has been good, looking at how you've been able to negotiate it. And of course, one of the many roadblocks to power projects is really a funding issue. Um, having this debt prospect with good standing, I think would actually very much help being able to complete these projects moving forward. Um, our next question, given there's funding, projects are executed according to the timeline, how do you assess the competitive landscape moving forward? We have several companies listed on the PSE, also pursuing renewable energy. Here, what sets Alter apart, or where do you find your niche?
Thank you, Gab. One, we welcome that there are more and more companies getting into renewable. It's good for the country. So we welcome that. It's good for the environment. What set us apart? One, we're pure play. We're very dedicated. Part of the lessons I've had in the past is I had a private equity fund. We were three partners, and we all thought alike. And if that's good, but the group think did not stop us from investing in projects that should not have been invested. So by having a broad management team that you saw in the lineup, we could question each other and tell us that one doesn't make sense. And I've been corrected many times, and nobody has a monopoly in correct answers. Two, one of the lessons I had when I was a private equity investor, I was investing in Del Monte, a pineapple company, sold that to Butch Campos. I bought Smart Telecom, sold it to PLDT. I bought into a semiconductor. You know what? No rhyme or reason. Semiconductor, pineapple, telecoms. Instead, we've decided here to just focus on renewable power in the Philippines. That is the focus. We're not a subsidiary of a conglomerate that is in malls or education. We are not a single person. We are a deep bench. So in that sense, that sets us apart. And of course, we have this triple play diversified portfolio gap. We're not just one resource, we got several. And what's an intangible asset that's not in the balance sheet that you won't see in the financial statements? Our network, our background. The fact that we know from our past experience, the regulators, we worked through 4 presidents, we've worked through 7 energy secretaries. If we have to talk to a governor, we know them on a first name basis. If we have to talk to the general manager of an electric co-op, we've known them for 20 years. That's an intangible asset that we bring to the table. And finally, our track record. Again, I mentioned I'm on the board of BDO, and I sometimes see a project by a brand new developer, and the bank is somewhat cautious because it's a first project of this company. And what happens? The terms are rather conservative. It's not 70-30 debt equity. Maybe it's 50-50. Or they're asking the guy to pledge their house in Forbes or what have you. So we get competitive terms because of our track record. Not to mention that we're all shareholders here. We're not hired professionals. Each one is a shareholders. I have 35 employees signing up to be part of the small scale investor in this IPO. Got 35 now signed up. We're all committed. We're all going to be the same side as you guys who will invest with us. We're all committed to making this company grow. Yeah.
That's very nice to know. The way it's coming to me is that members of the team are all investment-oriented individuals, and that type of mindset is, of course, what a management company needs to have in being able to realize projects like these, being able to produce power to the grid, and later on creating a growing company for investors. Rounding out, we have the pipeline funding prospects, competitive advantages. We want to ask on origins. Why is Alter here in the first place? What was the core vision that motivated everyone in your company to pursue this listing?
Well, Gab, I'll answer first in a rather rational way, and I'll answer in an emotional way. The rational way was when we were talking to a few insurance companies here. We said, why don't you lend to us? You guys are very focused on sustainability. And because an insurance liability is similar to the long-term asset of a renewable project, matching their asset and liability. But they said, sorry, Vince, sorry, Gerry, we love to invest with you, but the insurance commission does not allow us to invest in securities of an unlisted company. So by being public, we're able to tap the insurance market, we're able to tap the pension fund market that are begging desperately to have an exposure in renewable power. That's the rational answer. The second rational answer is we want to pivot to owning majority ownership of our projects rather than the way we bootstrap ourselves over 15 years. We'll set a project, slowly sell down, reinvest, sell down, reinvest. I mean, we've grown from 50 million pesos to 5 billion pesos in market cap. That's how much we've grown in 15 years. But the emotional side of it, Gab, we're all committed to this sustainability future. We have young kids. Gerry here has a 6-year-old. I have a 4-year-old. Jay Garcia here has a young son. And we're all thinking of leaving behind them a legacy for a sustainable future. And we keep saying this is renewable power for the next generation. So that's what it is. That's why we're here. That's why we're going public.
Thank you for the very honest answers of why you're pursuing the listing. Definitely, it's good to know that the rational answers are also backed up by personal motivations for, short to say, the future generation and for the country. We have that in place. We want to talk about where the company will be in from here, from listing. We did ask about megawatts capacity and growth over the next 2 years, but on an overall scale, where do you see Alter 2 to 3 years from now, and further 5 to 10 years from now?
Thank you, Gab. First, we do not intend to be the largest renewable power company. That's not our ambition here. We want to be a cutting-edge renewable player, a pioneer. As we roll out more battery energy storage, that's something we like to replicate with what we're doing in Palau. Offshore wind, we're very excited about that. That's a new frontier. We're going to be a high-growth development company. That's what we are. Dedicated, focused, all committed as shareholders in bringing value. And by the way, of the 3 partners in the management team, we've all taken companies public for others. And this is the first time we'll be taking our very own company public. And what we hope is, as you know, electricity prices in the country is not cheap anymore because of fossil fuel costs that's driven up the cost of power lately. It is high. Somebody said, you know what? One of our investors said, instead of me just paying high electricity rates, why don't I just be a part of it? Let me be a part of Alternergy so I could be a part of this high electricity rates that we hope to reduce with renewable power. You know, with all our travels, as we talk to other suppliers and technical partners, we've discovered that in places like Denmark, would you believe dentists get together to own a piece of a wind tower? We were in India, we found out Bollywood actors and actresses put some of their money into investing in renewables in India. So why not families here, some of you listening here, why don't you invest, if you're a young professional, invest in the future, buy a piece of Alter, keep it there for long-term capital, medium-term capital growth. Or if you're a father or a grandfather, invest it for your children or grandchildren. This is for their future, for their next generation. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, at the end of the day, you're investing in a renewable energy company isn't only investing in a company that produces profits, it actually also invests in a better tomorrow with a good impact on the environment, definitely. Okay. That concludes our question and answer portion. Thank you very much for that. Before we move on to some closing remarks from Sir Gerry and Sir Vince, we do want to pass it to one of our associates, Mar Serrano, to provide us with some updates on the listing process and how to subscribe.
Okay, thank you, Sir Gav. We have a special announcement for our guests for today. We extended our subscription for Alternergy until tomorrow, March 15, 2023, until 12 noon. And for the settlement, it will be until March 16, 12 p.m. And if you still guys need more time, you can subscribe through PSE Easy. Okay, all you have to do is to register. Okay, and fill up the form. And of course, kindly you'll have to choose Unicapital Securities as your broker, because we will be the one to validate your registration. And after that, once validated, you will receive an email, and we will forward your registration to PSE. Okay. We're going to send a copy of this presentation for our clients. For PSE Easy, their deadline is until March 17, Friday, 12 noon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mar. All right. Before we wrap it up for today, Vince or Gerry, or both of you, do you have any other messages you'd like to impart to our prospective investors and those listening on the call?
Well, thank you, Gab, for hosting this. I just want our audience to know that we actually chose Unicapital for a particular reason. I am a account holder myself of Unicapital. I saw what you guys did with Double Dragon, a very successful IPO, of which I'm an independent director. You guys did very well, despite perhaps some initial challenges, and had a big blowout with C-REIT. And we felt that Alternergy is something that will play in the hands of the clients and account holders of Unicapital. I have good faith. I'm very impressed the way you've managed this, Gab, the way your investment banking team have come on board. I thank you for supporting us. And post-IPO, we hope we could do more of these webinars, give you updates of how we're rolling out our portfolio. And we're here for the long run. This is just the beginning of our long process. This IPO will be out there for more capital market transactions. So we thank you for your interest in Alternergy, for your interest in renewable energy. Maraming salamat. Gab.
Right. Thank you. Gerry, any parting words?
I echo what Vin said. I hope that this session this afternoon has been productive and helpful to be investors and in Alter. And we hope that we enlighten everyone to make a decision. And we hope that we will be full shareholders and run and hope the fruition of the rollout of projects of Alternergy for the next generation.
All right. Thank you, Gerry. From our view, as we earlier mentioned, Philippine demand for energy is growing. Alongside this is the DOE's Philippine Energy Plan that targets a fourfold expansion of capacity in the next 20 years and shifts energy sources away from traditional fossil fuels to alternative renewable energy. On that, we find Alter's growth position in the industry to be well supported. For a company with a sizable pipeline, we like that Alter already has operating projects with commercially proven proof of concept in its wind department with the Bangi Bay Wind Farm project. Lastly, challenges in the form of execution risk and funding gaps are natural to growth-oriented companies. As this holds true, quality management is critical to the realization of goals, of which we find Alter's management composition to be quite capable of covering the regulatory side, the project financing side, and the business operations side. Overall, these merits point to a sound prospect for the company with tailwinds on its side. And thank you for joining us today. We hope that our presentation has helped equip everyone in your investing journey. So with that, we thank everybody. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, Gerry. And have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Unicapital Securities Incorporated is a leading brokerage house in the country dedicated to bringing you the best trading experience possible. USI is part of the Unicapital group of companies that provides its clients with an innovative, integrated range of products and services through the three companies that comprise the group. Our clients can invest in multiple assets through our UTrade platform. Invest on the go with the UTrade mobile app. Get exclusive access to special webinars and more by opening an account today.